you have the ebb and flow of life, and you have regrets. And anybody goes through life and says they don't have regrets didn't live life. We all have regrets. I have those. But I just want people to realize, and my kids and grandkids, that they're very few. I feel blessed by God with everything that I've learned from everything that's happened. Are the things I wish had turned out different? Obviously. But even at this age, if I were to die today, I'm thankful to God I had a wonderful life. I had a wonderful wife. I had wonderful kids. I did the best I could in whatever endeavor. It was really a wonderful time to grow up as a young person in the United States. We were at peace, and it was just a wonderful environment. I mean, it was right at the heart of the baby boom. I mean, we didn't understand what was going on, but there were a lot of kids. I mean, you had all these guys come back, 14 million guys come back from the service, and now you start having kids, and schools were expanding, and had a lot of kids in the neighborhood. We played ball all the time. I was on a little league team. We played pickup football, basketball. And the thing that was neat is the guys that I learned to play with or even play against became my best friends and fellow athletes going on into high school. We lived in a community that was blue collar, hard nosed. You played football. And we just loved our coach. I mean, we'd run through a brick wall for him. And he was a hard nosed, old school, run the devil out of you type coach. And I've never been through anything more physically demanding than that, even when I was in the service. Nothing came close to two-a-days for football. My mother was the one who was really instrumental in emphasizing education. She did not have I mean, here you are in 1937, you're at the height of the Depression. She did not have a chance to go to college. Dad dropped out of school, got his GED while he was in the service, so he never went to college. But growing up in the house, Mom always stressed that. The other thing that was going on at that time in my youth that was significant was the civil rights movement was taking shape. And we started seeing these race riots and all this stuff unfold in Watts and Harlem. And it was an eye-opener that something wasn't right that was provoking all of this. The other thing that was going on, we had a world history teacher who, my senior year would have been 1966, was asking us if we had been paying attention to what was happening in Southeast Asia. And if you're a 16, 17-year-old and you like girls, you like cars, you like sports, you're not paying a lot of attention to anything else other than that. We didn't know it at the time, but what the future held. But a lot of guys in my graduating class, I'd say over 50%, if not 60 or better, all ended up in the service at some time. A lot of us guys who came of age in the 1960s, our fathers had been in World War II. And we just felt it was our turn. We step up. This is what you do when you become a man in the United States. If your country needs you, you step up and do it. Had an excellent science teacher in high school. His name was Bruce English. And I kind of caught that passion, and I wanted to do something similar. And a lot of people say, you're going to go into teaching. Goodness, you don't make that much money. Look at the factory. You can go up there and get a job and make better money. And I tell you, that was always in the back of my head when I started teaching. And it wasn't until probably about 2000, 2001, sometime in that time frame after this episode was shot, that I really felt, I was where God wanted me to be. I was a teacher, and I was enjoying it, and I was making a difference. Ruth and I were in the same graduating class. I didn't know her. I was in some classes with her, and my first impression was, boy, she's smart. She was a good student. And I will tell you this. She looked good in miniskirts. That was miniskirt crazy. I mean, come on, I'm a guy, all right? That was, yes. And she did have a wonderful personality, as I discovered later. We didn't date in high school at all. In fact, it was an odd situation. I came home from college my junior year from Columbus, and I had a friend who had dated her a little bit. And I said, did you enjoy your dating? And she said, yeah, she's fun. I really liked her. I said, well, okay. So then I call her up and take her out. So anyway, it turned out well. But the thing that was odd was I was working summer jobs. I was working for an asphalt company. I'd have to get up before 6 in the morning. And so I left early and got home late. So my mother would call. I'd say, hey, Mom, call Ruth and ask her to go out. We're going to probably just go out to a movie tonight, or we're going to go to the Mohegan or something. And Mom would call and set it up with Ruth, and when I got home, I had a message. This is the days before cell phone. Communication was a lot tougher. Proposed to her in the fall of 1970, I believe it was. Graduated from college, both of us, in June of 71. Married in July of 71. And in August of 71, I was employed by Uncle Sam. So it was a whirlwind. And I'll tell you that with Ruthie, I got better than I deserve. No doubt about it. She's been a blessing. Love that woman. Given me 3 wonderful kids. Been a wonderful spouse. And that she's given me best years of my life. See, you get to be this age, you get a little teary-eyed at these things because, there's not a lot of sand in the glass. But it's been good. She's been a good woman, and we've been through a lot. Won't change anything. Good woman. We started having our family. We had a feeling that we needed to get back to church and our Christian roots, because going to college and being in the military does not enhance that. It actually kind of pulls you away, in my line of thinking. One of the things that happened is when Ruth was pregnant with Christopher, she was working part-time at People's Hospital in Mansfield. She'd work from 3 to 11. And on weekends, I'd watch the kids and take care of them. So this particular day, I'd made a tree house for the kids, and I had a tractor with a bucket, and I had chained it to the bucket, and all I needed is somebody to drive the tractor. And Ruth had always been one who didn't like to be around big mechanical things like that. It kind of intimidated her, but I assured her that nobody was going to get hurt. During that process, I stepped in a hole. I was walking beside it, stabilizing it, and she couldn't see what happened. She thought I'd fallen in front. Then she tries to jump off of it, and I'm jumping back up, and I see the tractor just crushing this dollhouse that I built, and she's not on the tractor seat. So I run over the tractor, shut it off, and I look for her, and she's underneath the tractor. At that point, she's 6 months pregnant. I get her out. Her leg is broken. And Ruth, being a nurse, says, I got to go get a bath before we go to the hospital. So the odd thing, there was a wheelbarrow right there. So I put her in a wheelbarrow, wheeled her up to the house, carried her in, carried her upstairs, got her a bath, and then we took her to the hospital. One of the things that we learned from that, though, was the fact that we could live without that income. And the family functioned much better when Ruth was spent more time at home. And at that point, we kind of reoriented ourselves and we prayed about this, and we decided we were going to start trusting God more at this time. We were going to start tithing. And so here you are, you have this accident, you're in hock, you say, geez, we're going to trust God more with our lives. So we turned over that financial component at that time. And we were blessed. I mean, everything ran better, was more harmonious. So from that point on, we kind of renewed our vows in church that we were going to be more faithful, and we were going to raise our children within the church and instill these Christian values in them. We raised our family. We were involved in Little League, 4-H. I would go in and umpire baseball games the boys were involved in. I remember in high school, Laura was in basketball, and I would run her places to camps and different things. And when she started school, she was a good student, and I loved her dearly and all that she could do. And the thing about Laura, she was hard-nosed. And I think one of the reasons that we butted heads is because we were 2 peas in the same pod. We had attitudes that were similar. But I love her. I love the way she's turned out. I love her family. Sean was more of a quiet. He's kind of the typical middle child in the family, a little quieter, and he was a good student, very good student, and so he thought he might like to go to the academy, and so he did that and was due to go in June of 1997, and at that point he took his own life, left us with a lot of questions of how did we miss any signs that he was distressed and in trouble? You know, how could we have missed this? And we went back afterward and started piecing it together and came to the conclusion that he'd been suffering from some bouts with depression. Obviously, I felt badly. And, you know, the other thing that goes through your head when something like that happens, I'm the father. I'm the head of the household. I believe that. And if I didn't know he was having issues, I should have known. So I kicked myself. I occasionally beat myself up over that because I didn't know, or I'd certainly gotten him help. But I loved him. And one of the things that he would do, and he'd come down with them wooden flip-flops on, banging down the steps. And he just did it to annoy me. I know he did. And then when I'd come home from work, he would always meet me with Daddy's home. And I think when I depart, that's something I'm going to hear, is Daddy's home. So yeah, I miss my companionship. I miss that love there. And then came the last one. He was the one that we were concerned with because of the tractor situation. The thing about Christopher that I loved was that he'd follow directions, and I almost to a fault, because he would always follow through on these things, and there's times that I just wish, okay, Chris, just dig in your heels and say no. And then when he got to college, he kind of started doing that. We would have a little tussles occasionally of, I won't say nonconformity, but of his independence. Things you want to be able to stand up and say, that's not right, I'm not going to do that, whether it's to a group of friends or to somebody else, you know, and he's acquired that. I'm proud of him, all my kids. Okay, in the 1989, I believe, we erected two 500-foot chicken houses. We got into this and thinking that, you know, if this worked out, this could set us up for retirement. It was another income stream. And so what that did is that we had to leverage our house, our property. I will tell you, I was not a lovely person at that time, because I felt the pressure that we had to succeed. Everything's bet on this game, and if this game does not work out, then we lose the house, we lose everything. My Christian beliefs have kept me steady, have kept me firm, and I believe have kept me out of trouble. And like I say, when we made the commitment to tithe and become closer to God, things really in our life started taking off and going well. I mean, not ideal. I mean, you know, there are other forces out there, but the trajectory was up. And it's always been good ever since. You want to approach your grave with not a bunch of, well, I wish I'd have done that and this. I think it's important to approach it as one who you basically can say, I tried to do the best I could, and that is a legacy that I want to leave behind. Well, one scripture verse that I have is Romans 8:28 that I've always focused on since Sean's death, and that basically paraphrased is that all things work out for those who are called to God's purposes. And I feel that my life, that has happened with me. Even though bad things have happened, they've all worked to good, and I give God credit for all that. I'm Bryan McClelland, and I'm leaving a legacy.